Welcome to all to our webinars. Today, Professor Efrat Monsonego Ornan from the Department of Biochemistry of the Hebrew University from Rehovot. She will explain us her recent study that provide the first comprehensive analysis for how ultra-processed food, junk food, impact skeletal development. These findings are really critical because it's known that children and adolescents and even people of older age consume junk food on a very regular basis to the extent of 50% in USA, but maybe also in other countries, as probably in Israel too. So we're very happy to have Professor Monsonego here with us. And I would like to remind you that her lecture will be around half an hour, and then you're welcome to ask your question by chat or by raising your digital hand. So please, Professor Monsonego, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will just share my, my screen with you. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yeah, we can see it all, but here, that's perfect now.
Okay, so hello everyone. I would like to thank Mara for the opportunity for organizing and really the opportunity to tell you about our recent work. And I would like to thank you for attending and coming to hear the research. So I will talk about recent, well, it's not recent. Recently it was published finally, but we actually work on it in the last decade in my lab. And our lab is focusing on understanding how the diet is affecting the skeletal development. And we are talking about post-embryonic skeletal development, not in embryonic, but after, in the first year of life. So that's what we are doing for many, many years. And when I'm talking about nutrition and the effect of bone, we can look at it from different angles. So we can look at it as an endocrine question. When we are eating something, this change our metabolic state, this affecting hormones, and these hormones affecting the skeleton. Insulin, IGF-1, growth hormone, etc. And we did this kind of works for many years, and we published the effect of insulin and the effect of leptin and so on. But when we are talking about diet effect on the skeleton or the body, we can also look at it as specific ingredients. When we are eating, we actually bringing into our body different molecules, many types of molecules, and some of them are signaling molecules, like the different fatty acid or caffeine, okay? When we are drinking coffee, the molecules of caffeine penetrating into the cells and affecting our cells in different ways. So we are not eating only energy and not only changing the metabolic state, but we actually put in signaling molecules. And we did this kind of studies also for many years. We mostly studied the omega-3 effect on the skeleton, and it's really nice papers, and we published it. But a few years ago, we were sitting in a group meeting, me and the students, and we were talking about future plans, what we want to understand, what we want to study. And we said, let's try to see how a real diet is affecting the skeleton, not specific nutrient, not vitamin, not mineral, but the whole diet. And this was just in a group meeting, but actually in Nature in 2016, and it's always good to quote Nature. So they also state people do not choose nutrients, they select combination of foods, and researchers need to be more creative and research finder bolder in assessing the health implication of common combination of foods. So, okay, and what kind of combination? So unfortunately, in recent years, this is how the combination looks like. Okay, not really recommended, but this is the combination, and mostly in children. So we wanted to choose one combination. When we are talking about combination, it's endless. There are endless types of combinations. So what combination should we choose to begin this kind of studies? And we decided to go for this, for the fast food or junk food or ultra-processed food. And luckily, there is a definition for it. And the definition for ultra-processed food is what's called the NOVA Food Classification System. This was suggested by a very courageous researcher, Carlos Monteiro from Sao Paulo University in 2008. He suggested that we should change the way we are classify the food, not anymore carbohydrate, protein, fats, but we need to classify the food by the amount of processing, because in recent years, in the 30, 40 last years, we change very dramatically. We transit our way of eating from the traditional way into this industrial way of eating. And this suggested to classify it by the processing. So we have the first group, the unprocessed food, which is fruit, vegetables, meat, fish, whatever, all kinds of food as is. You know, food is actually products of agriculture, okay? So whatever we are growing and eating, this would be the unprocessed or minimally processed food, very healthy. Then we have second of processed culinary ingredients, sugar, salt, fat, all the ingredients we are using in order to cook or to prepare our food, to process our food. And this is also recommended in case we are not using it too much. Then we have another group of processed food, which is also very healthy: bread, cheese, all kind of cooked vegetables, frozen food. And this is, we really need this kind of food in order to make our food more diverse, okay? To have more kind of and taste and enjoy food as well. So processed food is fine. But then we have the fourth group, and the fourth group is the ultra-processed food. This is a new category because it's industrial category of food. This was not, we could not find this ultra-processed food 50 or 60 years ago. This is something new, comparatively new. And this ultra-processed food is actually made by the industry. It's not made at home. And it's the process is actually they're taking whole food, make it into the different, isolate from it different ingredients, the fat alone, the carbohydrate, and then put it together into something else, something new, and adding into it a lot of processes like homogenization, hydrogenation, all kinds of process that we don't have in our kitchen, and also many artificial colors, artificial additives of taste, emulsifier, all kinds of material that they are putting in the food in order to make it more palatable, more colorful, to keep it long, to elongate shelf life, and so on. And this is the ultra process. This is the fourth group, which is what we wanted to study. Okay, this the fourth group. And I will just show you an example of processing. So if we take the corn is vegetable, it's very healthy, and then we can put it in a can, and this is processed, but you can see the ingredients are corn, water, sugar, salt. This is fine. Then we can make popcorn, it's a bit more processed, or cereals, which are more processed, and we can get into the heavy process, the ultra processed, which is Doritos. It's made from corn, but look at this. The list of ingredients. So it has a whole corn, vegetable oil, soybean, sunflower, taco seasoning, which is yellow, flour, spices, maltodextrin, whey protein concentrate, monosodium glutamate, whey, cheddar, so on and so on. We are getting into artificial flavor, yellow 6 lake, yellow 5 lake. Look at all this list. This really meaning that this is ultra-processed food. If there is so many names that we even do not recognize, it means that this is ultra-processed food. And when we get going to the supermarket, you can really see that many of the products that we are buying are ultra-processed, and we have to put attention into it to see what we are buying in order to minimize it. And the numbers are ultra-processed food make up to 70% of the US diet. Israel is quite the same. And I really want to show you, let's see if I can do it, a nice BBC documentary. I will just show you part in which they try to show how to demonstrate this transformation in the diet. Can you see the movie?
Yes, we can see it.
So I just show parts of it, not all of it, but they show
this represents not just fruit and veg, but all the spending of a household in 1980 on ingredients. So this would also be oil, salt, sugar, meat.
That's exactly right.
So how much were people spending on convenience-ready foods?
So the studies showed that 58% of household expenditure on food in 1980 was essentially spent on ingredients, fresh ingredients to make home-cooked meals, as opposed to 26% of household spending on food, which was spent on convenience food.
40 years ago.
But look what happened next. Over the following 20 years, our spending on fresh ingredients shrank to just 28%, whilst our spending on convenience foods almost doubled to 44%. When you lay it out like this, it's a spectacular transformation. This goes from being the majority of our diet to that entirely different category of food being the majority of our diet.
Absolutely.
Show you
That's
another.
a lot of ultra-processed food.
57% of calories consumed amongst the whole UK population is from ultra-processed food. Shocking thing is that actually the number is much higher amongst our young people. So amongst children, there's 64%, and amongst adolescents, there's 68%.
And there are some people in the UK who are eating a huge proportion of ultra-processed food.
So I think it's understood. Okay. So the magnitude is huge, and it's only getting higher and higher, and the health outcomes are quite known. We are talking about overweight and obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, fatty liver, all this kind of metabolic disease in aging people usually. Now we find them also in young people, and we think it's because of the diet, but the effect on the bone, on the developing bone, was not studied. And that's what we decided to do. We said, okay, let's try to check how this type of diet affecting the young bone. And the beginning of the experiment was quite simple. We took 2 groups of rats. We are working in preclinical model of young rats after weaning. And one group get the control diet, which is what recommended for rats in terms of a healthy diet for growing. And the other group get the ultra-processed food, which was a hamburger and a bun and chips and caloric soft drinks. And we gave this type of diet for 6 weeks from after weaning up to sexual maturation in the rats, which mimic the period of children, let's say from the 2 years to 15 years, okay? All the period of growing. The preparation of the diet was simple. We bought a lot of this type of food, and then we grind it all together, and you can see that it's no longer looks nice in this time, and we put it into patties like they used to eat, and you can see here the rats with this kind of food. They really liked it. And we also gave them the soft drinks. You can see they had water and soft drinks, and you can see that especially this rat is really insisting on the soft drink. And then we begin to do all the analysis that we are usually doing in our experiment. We were looking how the animal are growing. And this already was the surprise. The first, just weighting them and see their size was really surprising. They did not get obese. The opposite, they stopped growing. So you can see in blue, the control, and you can see in red, the group that get the ultra-processed food, and their growth was inhibited. And also the length was shorter compared to the control. So the ultra-processed food actually inhibit their longitudinal growth, the bone elongation. And here we also measure different types of bone, the length of them, and all of them in the ultra-processed food were shorter. Then we went into the analysis that we are doing usually by micro-CT. We scanned all the bone of the animals and we studied the different parts of the bone. And this is the trabecular bone, the part of the bone which is very spongy and metabolic active. And this is an example of control and of ultra-processed bone. And you really don't have to be expert in bone to see what's happened. This is the way normal young bone is supposed to look, with a lot of trabecula. And the ultra-processed bring, the animal lost big parts of their trabecular bone. And we also, of course, we calculated it and see it in a statistical way that they had much lower trabecular bone. And we will also look at the cortical bone. The cortical bone is the long part, which is supposed to be mechanical, strong and hold the body and allow a movement. And the scale of the colors are actually a bone mineral density scale. So you can see the control has a lot of red, which is the high bone mineral density. And you can see that the ultra-processed has less area of mineralization in the bone. And this was, of course, also measured, but it's again very clear to see that the mineralization was lower. And another phenotype which was really surprising was the porosity of the bone. So you can see here a slide of the bone, and this is the way a slide looks in a young animal. It's quite intact. And look what's happened with the ultra-processed. And I'm reminded that these are the same animal in the same age. The only difference was their diet, and the bone is full of pores. All these are pores, and we measure it, so that the percentage of pores was higher, and the number and the volume. And this is actually looks like an old aging bone. This is osteoporosis. The bone is full of pores, although the animals are really young. And since it was so poor, the porosity was so high, so of course the mechanical properties of the bone were really damaged. And that's what we are seeing here. And I will not get you to the details, but this is a 3-point bending experiment in which we are bending the bone until they are broken, of course, after the animal died. But you can see that the ultra-processed bone was fragile 4 times more compared to the normal bone. And this was really shocking in terms of understanding what happens to the bone, or to the role of the bone. To try to understand why does it happen, we went to look at the growth plate. The growth plate is found in the end of the long bones, and these are the area where the bone is elongated, okay? In the growth plate, in the sides of the bone, we have a process of cells which proliferate and differentiate, and they give and they actually built the young bone and enable it to grow. So this is the way a normal growth plate looks like, this line, and it's full of chondrocyte cells which proliferate and differentiate. And that's what they're supposed to do in this age. But when we look at the growth plate of the ultra-processed group, we saw a plaque of cartilage which does not undergo mineralization and proliferation and differentiation, all the normal process. And this can really explain why the bone has such a terrible structure and such terrible quality, because if the process of development, of growing, is so damaged here, of course, the bone that will build in the end cannot be normal and qualitative bone. And the next step was to try to understand the mechanism. What's happened to these cells? Why they are not doing their job? And we extracted the genes from the growth plate, from the normal and the ultra-processed growth plate, and we sequenced, we did the RNA sequencing for all the genes, and we study, you can see that many genes were modified, of course. I will not get, because these are a lot of gene names and details, but we were able to see very clearly that many of the normal process of the skeletal pathway and the general pathway of signaling were modified in this growth plate. And this can really give us a picture that when we are getting ultra-processed and caloric soft drinks in young age, we are stop growing, we have metabolic impairment, the quality of the bone is impaired, and all this is because of the cartilage plaque that we see in the growth plate. And this cartilage plaque is because of impaired processing of the normal cells in the growth plate. So this is very serious situation that happens when we are eating this kind of food. The next step, of course, was to ask what in the processed food, the ultra-processed food, is doing this damage, because we are talking, we study combination, but then which part of the combination is the harmful? Maybe we can take it out. Maybe it's only one of them. So we were asking, is it the caloric soft drinks? Is it the macronutrients, the carbohydrate, the fat, or maybe the micronutrients? What part of the diet is this devil? And for this, we did many experiments, which in each one we tried to play only with one component. And we tried to see if the soft drinks are responsible for it. And the answer is no. It's not the caloric soft drinks. And then we try to ask, maybe it's the macronutrients. So we planned a diet in which you see the normal diet, then the ultra-processed, but then we divided the ultra-processed into a high-fat or high sucrose diet, which are two problem of the ultra-processed diet. And we study all the phenotypes. And although we saw many phenotypes, no one of them was as severe as the one we saw with the ultra-processed. So it's not the macronutrients. So maybe it's the micronutrients. And to study if it's a problem of micronutrients, we take another approach. We took the ultra-processed diet and we supplemented it with multivitamins and minerals, okay? So we said maybe there is not enough vitamins and minerals, so we will supplement it and we see if we can change the phenotype. So that's what we do, and we did, and indeed, look how nice. The control bone is nice, the ultra-processed bone full of these pores, and the ultra-processed with the multivitamins and mineral looks better. They still have pores, but not as terrible as the ultra-processed itself. So when we supplement with multivitamin and mineral, maybe we are doing something good. And even the growth plate looks better. It's not completely normal like this one, but it's not as bad as the ultra-processed. So we were able to improve also the growth plate phenotype. And this leads to better bone. And actually, in recent years, we are talking about this kind of phenomenon of a new malnutrition syndrome. We know when we are talking about malnutrition, we have this undernutrition, the African type of undernutrition, protein energy malnutrition, wasting, stunting. We know this phenotype. There is a micronutrient specific malnutrition, like the sailors who went to the ocean without vitamin C and get sick. So when they get the vitamin C, everything was okay. And we have the modern malnutrition, which is a combination of overnutrition on one hand, but on the other hand, with some deficiencies of fibers, of omega-3, of vitamins, mineral. And this is the type, maybe this is the type of malnutrition that we are seeing, overnutrition. So maybe all we need to do is just to add vitamins and minerals, and we will not have an issue. So no, the answer is no, because we can, indeed, we had some bone rescue with the addition, but we get another problem instead. And what you are seeing here is picture of the kidneys of these rats. So this is the normal kidney, and you can see it in binocular or microscope, and everything looks okay. And the ultra-processed animal that get the ultra-processed diet also had quite normal kidney, a bit bigger, but normal. But when we are looking on the group that we were supplemented with multivitamin or even just with calcium, what you are seeing here, the black dots are actually mineralization. And what we are seeing here is young animal, young kidney that already has bones in it. Mineralization, accumulation, mineral accumulation in the kidneys of this animal who get the supplement. So we rescue the bone, but we have a terrible cost in the kidney of the young animal, and we did not give them overdose of multivitamin and mineral. We just supplemented to the same level of the normal diet. So the answer could not be, we will just add this type of vitamin or another. This type of ultra-processed food is really harmful, and if we can keep our bones, so we will probably pay for it in another system. And I see that, okay, we have a little more time. So we are also, since we did so many experiments of this type and many other that I did not tell you about, we are trying to build some way to predict dietary effect on the quality of development of the skeleton by a computational approach that will take all the results that we have, and we have so many results. We have all the bone quality test and blood test and the growing and all the data that we collected from the various experiments. And we can combine all of them, and by machine learning, try to find which data is connected to another, and maybe had a prediction for skeleton development without doing all this kind of analysis that of course can be done on animal, but not on children. So we want to have some prediction, and this is the approach that we are taking now, trying to analyze all the connection and found which data is connected to the other, and can we learn just by maybe blood test about the developmental process of the rats and later on of children. And here you can see some connection that I will not get into because there are details. It's not really what's important, but we found some connection which are correlated, and we can learn from serum levels about bone development. And just beginning of this year, we were the paper was accepted for publication in Bone Research, which is a journal belongs to Nature Group, which is a very prestigious journal. So we were really happy about it. And the paper is ultra-processed food targets bone quality via endochondral ossification. Whoever wants to see the paper or read all the details, it is found in the my lab site in the university, so you are most welcome to get into the details. And I was really happy to see that very short time after it was published, it was getting a lot of awareness from the media, and also from two of my inspiring researcher. This is Carlos Monteiro, the one who was building the NOVA classification, who was tweeting about our paper, and Robert Lustig, another leader of nutrition and science that was also put in Facebook about the paper. And it's really important for me, it's really important to have this attention, because I think that this kind of data can be used by policymakers and by leaders of public health, and to really try to change our nutrition and to move into a better state of less ultra-processed and more natural and processed or minimal processed diet, which will be only good for us and for our children for sure. And these are the students who did the work. As I said, there are many experiments and a lot of work behind that. So it was done mostly by Jana, Shelly, Tamara. These were the leader of this project, and my collaborator in the university and around the world. And it's really privileged. I feel privileged to work with such a young and energetic young researchers that always willing to learn more and to try to find more about our life and what can we do in order to improve things. So thank you very much, and I will be happy to have questions.
Thank you, Efrat. Thank you a lot. It was really interesting and even a lot of thought during your speaking. So we're now ready for any question. In the meanwhile, I have a question. We speak a lot about meat grown in the lab, like the next level of meat. Does it fit in the ultra-processed food, or will it be meat that it's like real meat?
Yeah, so this is one of the, yes, this is one of the issues that we still don't know, because the definition is how many processed were done on the products. And as for now, it seems that most of the in vitro meat will be ultra-processed. And then it's getting into another question of how much ultra-processed is allowed to eat. And if we are eating ultra-processed, of what kind? I mean, the more specific definition, and what about the environment? I mean, we want to protect the environment. So maybe this is a payment that we are willing to do and said, okay, we will have some ultra-processed in specific area which are important for other things. So we are really working on it. I'm now taking part in a roundtable of the European Food Summit that are dealing with this question, which are really important. And we are also writing an opinion paper for the health ministry about the definition, because as you see, it's not very easy to define. So for now, it looks as if the cultured meat will be ultra-processed, but maybe not. Maybe they will find a way to do it better.
Let's hope. So we have a question. Should we be taking calcium, vitamin D, omega, etc.?
Okay. So it's depends. It depends in our age. It depends in the way we are eating. It depends in many aspects of our life. Of course, if we have deficiencies, we should take it, okay? Because we have to prevent deficiencies. Deficiencies are one of the things that each nutritionist will tell you for sure that it's better to prevent. So if your diet does not have enough calcium, vitamin D, omega-3, I would, as nutritionist, and I didn't say, but my first degree was in nutrition in the same school that I'm working in today. So as nutritionist, I would tell you, if you don't have enough in your diet, you should take supplements, but I would prefer to change the diet in order to get all the things from the normal food. If this is not possible, then I will supplement, but I will not go to overdoses or something like that.
Thank you. So we are now ready for more questions. And again, you can also raise your digital hand. In the meanwhile, I have another question. Do you know which are the difference between, we have friends here from United States, Canada, Europe, which are the difference of the kind of food that European eat and in the States? Are we all together, all the same already, or there are still particular differences?
This is actually really interesting because the European, if I will not talk about the UK, which is a different types of European, sorry, but the European countries are comparatively better eater in terms of industrial food. They're using more of the traditional type of eating. This is probably because they have a lot of traditional type of eating. I mean, if you are traveling in Italy, you will see only Italian restaurants. There are no, or almost no other restaurants. And well, not like in Israel that we have all kinds of restaurants, very nice one, but we don't have really traditional Israeli food. We don't have yet traditional Israeli food. So I think the Europeans are in better situation. Still, the young generation is much worse than the older one. And this is part because we are working more time. We don't have time to cook. We have less, we are, you know, running from one to other things. And it's much easier to take something to eat instead of sitting and eating. And all this changing in our lifestyle is also changing the way we are eating, the way we are cooking, the time that we are in the kitchen. There is a very nice book of Michael Pollan, whoever interested in food is one of the best writers, and he said that we are watching more cooking in television than actually cooking ourselves. So this is a transition that we have done in recent years.
Okay, so here we have a few more questions. Will a growing world population have access to natural food, a diet to which I agree and consume as much as possible? Do maybe people living in rural regions have better chance to have healthier bone growth than people living in highly industrialized countries and in urban areas?
Yeah, so, okay, this is a very good point because this was also something that came from the reviewer of the paper all the time. They ask, okay, it's really nice to have a study in rats, but do you have any connection? Do you have any clues that the same things happens in children? And we found one paper, I think from Britain, in which they compared the bone of young children which are living in the cities, which are close to all kind of chain food shops, to children who are living in a village, and they found that the bones of the children who are living out of town were healthier and has a higher bone mineral density. Of course, this is not proving it. It's just linking, make another connection and putting it together as possible. But you can always say that people who are living in the village are going out more and they have more vitamin D from the sun, or maybe they are more active, or maybe they don't sit on television so much. So it's really difficult to learn it from this kind of epidemiological study, but together with the basic science, we can really think that maybe it's proved something. And really people, and there are also, but this is more to aging people, there are huge studies about nutritional patterns, and they show that the Mediterranean nutrition pattern were better in terms of bone health in older people. So this is another link that we can maybe connect to what we see.
Okay. Again, we have a few more minutes for more questions. and again in the meanwhile. So just speaking today with a colleague of mine, we were thinking about the difference in generations in nutrition. And we're thinking about particular populations without any data, so maybe it's not even true. But for example, if we think about Asian, Japanese people that moved to United States or maybe even to Europe, and you can see that the next generation is a bit taller than the old generation, and it's probably influenced by the different kind of food. So which is the connection between maybe it's a question of generational thing or of food. It's interesting to understand it.
Yes. So what we know about that is mostly from Europe, because again, in Europe, there is a traditional way of even keeping the data. So for instance, I think in the Netherlands, we have the best data many generations backward about weight and height of population. And you know that the Dutch are maybe the tallest in the world in average for women and for men. And what we see there is that in each generation, except for the years of the wars, the first and the second, each generation gets higher than the generation before until this generation. And this generation is no longer taller than their parents in average. Of course, this could be due to maximizing the potential. I mean, there is a genetic potential. It's not all nutrition. It's 70% genetic potential and then 30% nutrition and other aspects. But it can also be that in the last generation, we are not, I mean, we have a lot of food in Europe, but maybe it's not as nutritious as it was before. And we can see that this is the first generation which is not taller and probably is not going to live longer than their parents. But this is, we still don't know, but this is what we assume, that in the pandemic of obesity that we are seeing here, we might be the first generation that not overlived our parents.
Okay. So I think we have our last question, asking if there is a guide table for different ages as to what to intake of calcium and vitamins and protein, etc.
Of course, it's really organized, and we have recommendation for the general population according to gender and age, and the recommendation are different for children and for adults and for aging. But again, in these days, which everything is getting more personalized, we are talking about personalized nutrition and personalized medicine. And I think that each one of us can gain a lot of going to serious dietitian to talk once or twice, even if there is no real problem, just to improve the diet. I was involved in a project that we did in Israel with children, that we just went with them to the supermarket. The idea was, let's go together to the supermarket. You are buying whatever you like, and the dietitian just trying to improve it. Okay, if you choose this food, she suggests you another things that will make your shopping better. And some things, you know, it's children, some things they didn't want, but we can always improve the diet just by being aware of what we are eating. Sometimes we are not aware. I was just begin to look at the ingredients when you are buying, and you will be so surprised, because some things have, we might think that they are very healthy because this is the way they are they selling to us as healthy food, and maybe it's not healthy at all. So I think each one of us can gain a lot of knowledge and improvement by one or two consulting about supplements, and also about the normal diet, what we're really supposed to eat, even if we are still healthy and everything is fine. So there are a recommendation, and it can be very specific today.
Thank you a lot. I think this was our last question. Thank you for your very, very interesting lecture. I'm sure the next time we will all go to the supermarket, we will look at everything in a very much different way. And I will send to everybody the recording of these lectures in the next few days. And of course, if you think about other questions, you're welcome to send me by mail, and I will forward to Efrat. So thank you, everybody, and hope to see you in our next webinar. Thank you a lot, Efrat.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.